Please welcome to the stage, Dylan Mulvaney!
Everybody likes stories about underdogs.
Jeffrey does not identify as he or she. He's written a new book, How to Be You.
Thomas wins the NCAA championship.
People who want to bring revolution.
His ideas formed the foundation for sexual education. John Money convinced Bruce's parents to transition him into a girl.
Or should I say, inclusivity, diversity, and equality.
With CDC's LGBTQ inclusivity in schools,
I'm ready to step up and take on some leadership skills.
he considers himself a woman.
But I am a woman.
These are not one of them.
Big news story today, transgender swimmer Leah Thomas
barred from her first women's event.
It was because his 9th grade daughter had allegedly been sexually assaulted.
My teammates and I were forced to undress,
exposing his nylon-covered crotch in front of the children.
Back in December 2022, I found out about internet's one of the biggest controversial topics.
This is also about accepting the most demeaning sexual behavior.
And I once thought it all centered around one ideology, and the use of so-called inclusivity spun over the course of a few years.
They asked my parents a simple question.
What is a woman?
And they stripped me of my identity.
But now I think it's just another form of smoke and mirrors.
They're trying to play the system.
From genders to pronouns. I remember watching it grow in front of my eyes and wondering, why?
You rather have a dead daughter
His research was fraudulent.
or a living transgender son?
I've lived through it.
For the last few months, I was trying to connect the dots, and by doing so, I found out a whole mechanism. A mechanism that I'm still unable to figure out if it is the reality or just a web of lies. For me, and maybe some of you, it all started here. Dylan Mulvaney, an American TikToker who within a fraction of a few years first came out as gay, then queer, then non-binary, then trans, and now lesbian.
Recently told my parents that I may be a little bit romantically interested in women. And that was a big shock.
It wasn't like I did not know about the woke culture or the LGBTQ community, but after hearing this story, I get on to Google. And boy, the things I found.
Dylan Mulvaney!
I am so honored to be here with you all tonight.
A biological man.
Now he's into ladies.
Nothing gets done in a woke society.
I am so tired of talking about woke culture.
It's like, no, you're not. You're getting a sexual kick from dressing up in women's clothing.
Suddenly my internet was bombarded with wokeism. I started watching every video, read almost every article popping in my Google homepage on topics like social inequality, sexism, discrimination, LGBTQ rights, from the protests of Black Lives Matter to the videos where people were teaching kids about how to be gay.
The only thing these Florida kids are learning from me is be gay.
As an absolute outsider, this is my story, my experience about this whole LGBTQ and woke culture stuff. And as I dig deep into this rabbit hole, after every article, every video, I felt like something was strange. And it is not finished yet. This is where it all began. Stonewall Inn, a gay bar in New York City. Back in 1950s and 60s, homosexuality was still illegal in 49 states of USA, and despite owning by the Italian-American mafias, police still used to raid the bar regularly and charging them with solicitation of homosexual relations, and also get arrested if they weren't wearing what the police deemed gender-appropriate clothing. But all these years of constant oppression came to an end. In the early morning hours of 28 June 1969, the police raided the bar again, and while arresting, police officers quickly lost control of the situation, resulting the residents were so frustrated they even set the bar on fire, which the police barricaded themselves in. But even though the police were rescued, the Stonewall riot went on for a few more days. And within few weeks, people started to demand their right to live openly regardless of their sexual orientation, and without the fear of being arrested. After 30 years, in the month of June 1999, Bill Clinton declared June month as Gay and Lesbian Pride Month.
Pain that he and others, gay and lesbian Americans, have endured.
With the expansion of Barack Obama by including the whole LGBT community in 2011. But this is just a fraction of what woke culture is. In reality, gender obsession is just a part of a bigger mechanism. And when you put all the pieces together, you encounter the real quote-unquote woke culture. Now this incident was actually a revolution. Arresting and harassing someone just because they are homosexual doesn't bring any good to the society. Any incident of oppression is highly criticized, and not just the Stonewall riots. Many incidents before the riot, like the establishment of first gay group 1924, January 1958, Supreme Court rules in favor of gay rights, April 21st, 1966, the Metashian Society recognizes gay rights sip in. And also after the riot, like Declaration of Homosexuality as Not a Mental Illness 1973, April 2000, Vermont same-sex marriage legalization, April 2015, Obama calls for an end of conversion therapy, July 2015, the military will allow transgender Americans to serve openly in the military, May 2016, the Stonewall Inn becomes a national monument, November 2018, LGBTQ candidates sweep the midterms. And through so many incidents, people learned homosexuality and accepted it as it is. Some people still didn't like the laws that have been made, but at least people weren't getting arrested on streets. And even though struggling for so many years, LGBTQ people finally got their freedom they wanted. They were allowed to serve in the military, they got their job opportunities and the freedom to freely express their feelings to their loved ones. And from the early 2010, this awareness was spreading through social media platforms. Bullies who used to bully LGBTQ people were getting called out on the internet for their homophobic and transphobic behavior. And people were becoming woke until
Pride Month used to be about celebrating gay rights and campaigns for equality.
This is also about accepting the most demeaning sexual behaviours.
Yeah. They like stars. The freaking hypnotoad.
My teammates and I were forced to undress in the presence of Leah, a 6'4" tall biological male, fully intact with male genitalia.
Trans woman guilty of raping 2 women, remanded in female prison in Scotland.
It was because his 9th grade daughter had allegedly been sexually assaulted in a school bathroom by a gender-fluid, skirt-wearing boy.
Open penis showing at the pride parades. Many children in the other shots. What the hell is happening?
If you say that a little kid can make the informed decision to mutilate himself and to cut off his genitals, we're told certainly that little kid can make the informed decision to dance around for dollars.
YouTube Kids is grooming children with LGBTQ plus propaganda. I made an account and what I found was disgusting.
I am 14 and sissy feminized porn has fucked me up mentally.
After seeing these clips, you are either a little uncomfortable or very much offended. And I was too, because personally, I was very supportive about the LGBTQ community. And I kinda like the woke culture because why not? What is the problem with acceptance? When acceptance becomes absurdity.
That I support trans rights to fairness and equality, but in issues like sport and women's sport, not to the point where it starts to degrade the fairness and equality for women.
Now, popular British journalist Piers Morgan did this episode in his show where he talks about a transgender athlete, Leah Thomas, winning swimming competitions against women.
I do not blame her. She played within the rules, but she dominated. She had gone through male puberty. Her lungs are bigger, her back's bigger, her hands are bigger. She just has a tremendous advantage in swimming in the pool against the women, and she proved that.
This was the point where I started to wonder, okay, what is going on? And a lot of you started to as well. The more you search about it, you realize it didn't happen once. Cesa Telfer is the first out trans woman to win an NCAA track and field title in 2019. Fallon Fox winning in CCCW against women in 2014. Laurel Hubbard, international weightlifting medal in Melbourne 2017. Emily Bridges, the British cyclist who won medals in several events. Quinn, the first transgender person to compete at the Olympics. Quinn played for the Canadian women's soccer team and won a gold medal at the 2020 Summer Olympics. But Piers Morgan is just one of the voices of the critics. And while these woke promising achievements were celebrated, there was another side of the story that was being painted. The critics who are way more skeptical, and they clearly had a warning. And according to them, what you are witnessing is an agenda.
We're not
an agenda that has been driven by attention.
This is an individual who's thriving on other people's affirmation, validation, and attention.
Mass delusion.
Do you worry that minors just don't understand enough about themselves? They're not neurologically developed enough yet to make permanent life-altering decisions?
Absolutely not.
Or as the other critics put it, a dangerous idea that is being indoctrinated from the children to the elderly, that has the biggest celebrities, brands, politicians backing it, knowingly or not. Trans athletes should not be allowed in women's sports. That's what a lot of skeptics will tell you. And I understand why. While there is a large group of people who agrees with the idea of trans women competing in women's sports,
if there's an advantage, and I'm not saying that there is, for trans women in women's sport, it's not an unfair advantage.
critics like Piers Morgan, Brett Cooper, Amir Odom, Ben Shapiro, Blair White, Amala Penelope, Lo Hawley, Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles, Isaac Butterfield, Anti-Prophet, and many bringing valid points to the debate with biological facts, logic, and common sense. And the reason behind this is because trans athletes who have been through male puberty have an advantage in their biology.
Against women, rather. They have a mechanical advantage.
Of course.
But there's also a mental advantage. There's a reaction advantage. A reaction time is quicker.
Field athletes who want to take over because they can't make it in the men's category and they want to steal it from the women? Because if not, then why are the athletes who used to compete with men were ranking way behind suddenly winning in women's category? If not, then why trans athletes were breaking world records with a broad margin? And if not, then why isn't it happening the other way around? Which was kind of a little funny to me. Because trans men might have a disadvantage despite the hormones. And if trans women have a little advantage, then why not make a different category of them? At least, it is what people say about it.
Trans people, either make your own league or you compete what you were born at.
Announcing a ban that prevents transgender athletes from participating in female events after going through male puberty.
Do you have a solution here, like a separate category for trans athletes?
Open category for trans athletes.
And of course, there are women out there who can beat the shit out of a man. But that's because they have skill. But I'm not concerned about the sports actually.
We've been going through this for 2 years.
There are now reports of 2 sexual assaults by a gender-fluid boy.
It was because his 9th grade daughter had allegedly been sexually assaulted in a school bathroom by a gender-fluid, skirt-wearing boy.
Enough is enough.
You know, if we can't stand up and defend our families, what has this country come to?
Smith was in the board meeting after his daughter was sexually assaulted by a teen who went on to sexually assault another student at a different school.
Now this might really upset you, and it should actually. Scott Smith, whose 15-year-old daughter got sexually assaulted in school's girls' bathroom in Loudoun County, Virginia by a male student who identifies as gender fluid. Now what is a gender fluid? A person who identifies as someone whose gender is like liquid and has fluidity. They can be one gender, multiple genders, or no gender. But the really concerning part is that the school board covered up the attack to ensure passage to a controversial transgender policy. And at the school board meeting, the school board repeatedly denied that anyone had been assaulted in the bathroom. Even the superintendent, Scott Ziegler, went so far as to say the predator transgender student or person simply does not exist. But there is another twist. The funny part is an email from Ziegler showed that he not only knew about the attack on the female student back in May, but that he had personally reported the attack to school board members. And the perpetrator, he was released and transferred to another school. And on October 6th, he committed another sexual assault on another girl. And this time he got convicted. But this incident might not be just an exception that you're looking for.
My teammates and I were forced to undress in the presence of Leah, a 6'4" tall biological male, fully intact with male genitalia. When we tried to voice our concerns to the athletic department, we were told that Leah's swimming and being in our locker room was a non-negotiable, and we were offered psychological services to attempt to re-educate us to become comfortable with the idea of undressing in front of a male.
Everyone should know that I'm a trans woman. I've always been known as Kaylee. I've always used she, her pronoun, and it's the only place that I feel safe using the women's bathroom.
Before you call it transphobic, just think. Bathrooms and locker rooms are a place where your private parts gets exposed, and Getting sexually harassed is not something you wanna experience, regardless of your gender. And I have sympathy for those trans people who really suffer from gender dysphoria and sexual harassment.
I have faced rape, been assaulted, discrimination. I was raped and attempted to be raped in 2015 by an individual I was in a cell with.
Going in there with my faith and, my identity, and they stripped me of my identity.
But one of the shadiest parts of this is people like Leah Thomas and Isla Bryson who are just taking advantage of the system and getting away with it.
I think Isla Bryson is at it, if I'm honest. I think they're a dangerous individual, deceptive individual. I don't think they're a true trans woman. I think they're trying to play the system for personal advantage.
Isla Bryson, a double rapist, attacked 2 women in Clydebank and Glasgow in 2016 and 2019 while known as Adam Graham. Later transitioned himself to identify as transgender so that he can be imprisoned in women's jail. Well, he was sentenced to men's jail for 8 years, but imagine if that didn't happen.
Trans woman guilty of raping 2 women, remanded in female prison in Scotland.
2 female inmates are pregnant after they had sex with another inmate.
A transgender female inmate has been moved to a men's prison after impregnating 2 other biological female inmates.
Oh, well, it's just happened once. It's like, how many women need to be threatened or raped before it's okay for you? Like 5? What's the exact number?
These topics are pretty much self-explanatory, and all the problems comes to privacy and one question: should people use the bathroom of the gender they identify with?
Hi, could you put me to the ladies' room?
Yeah, sure, it's just right over there.
Thanks so much.
Sorry, I just overheard. Are you looking for the women's bathroom?
Yes, I found it. Thanks.
No, I know you might feel like you're a woman, but you're obviously a man. You can't go in there.
I still remember when this video came out. I was binge watching all the episodes on this topic and I was like, yeah, she is a woman.
But I am a woman.
And I almost got indoctrinated by the thought that anybody can identify as any gender they want.
Okay, why can't I identify as a black lesbian?
But now when I watch this, I kinda question myself. And I'm not against all trans people using bathrooms of the gender they identify with, but you are telling me there is no difference between this and this. And for some people, there is no difference between them. The choice is yours, but if there is a problem with this, then gender-neutral bathrooms are the solution maybe. But while we are talking about just the trans people, there is more problematic things going on with the whole community. Since 1970 to today, Pride has changed so much that it has taken its path towards absurdity and vulgarity. Now it has become this.
It is 11:40 at night. These people have children in a drag show. Telling her get her money. Look at this bullshit. Look at this bullshit now.
Tell me this doesn't look disgusting. If you are pursuing this also as your sexual desire, go for it, that's your personal choice. But none of this should be out in front of children. I mean, doesn't it look a little problematic when people like this who are almost naked roam around in front of children? And the drag queens has become the absolute representation of sexuality in pride parades.
And then you just move your bum up and down like that, and that's twerking.
Constantine Anthony, he's the mayor of Burbank, California,
Was filmed getting spanked by a drag queen in front of students. But the shocking thing is, even though the claim is that all the students were over 21 years old, this event was promoted for ages 15 and above. Seriously? 15? But despite the age,
spanking someone like that, the mayor,
doesn't look very appropriate.
I come from a very silly performance background. To me, what is goofy and normal to other folks seems inappropriate.
I'm not saying you should not practice your sexual desires, but do it in your private space at least. Back in 2019, Sasha Sota, a drag queen, was accused of exposing genitals during a drag queen story hour. Although some say this didn't happen anyway, but some say there is nothing wrong with it. Personally, I do not have any problem with people doing whatever they want in their private spaces, but when these overly sexualized behaviors encounter children, isn't it a little bit concerning? And I'm not saying everybody does this. Drags go to the libraries and read stories to children, and they are wholesome, but on the other hand, there are some people who literally perform these overly sexualized gestures in front of children.
My name is Asa. I am 6 years old and I do drag.
Asa is a baby drag queen.
And tell me this isn't a consequence of adult brainwashing when kids of this age perform like strippers.
Disturbing footage surfaced of a drag queen performing in front of infants. Yes, infants. The vision is so shocking that we have to heavily blur it. But these are grown adults in bondage gear or in G-strings strutting around in front of tiny kids, infants.
Tell me this doesn't scream pedophilia. And tell me this is the culture that the LGBTQ people wanted back when the Stonewall riots took place. The gay and lesbian people, all they asked was to be treated equally, equal job opportunities, no weird looks, no discrimination in medics, and just to coexist, and that's all. And if you think it's just the straight people who are not liking it, then maybe you're in delusion.
It's safe to say that Pride Month is one of the most hated months of the year.
I don't need a rainbow flag and a teary-eyed video confessing the fact that I like big butts and I cannot lie, but it may be interesting to hear that I'm actually extremely ashamed to be a part of this community.
And these fuckboys thought it'd be cute to do this.
And some people don't see me as a woman at all.
It's not only a few people who don't see you as a woman. According to science and biology, you're not a woman.
The LGB has nothing to do with the TQ plus community. The
Pause. Amir Odom, a public speaker and a YouTuber who spoke about the absurdity of Pride Month, drag queens and trans athletes, etc. He himself is a gay person, and he clearly says that being gay is just a part of himself. It's not his whole identity.
Being gay is merely just a part of me, but first, I'm Amir.
Blair Wright is also a trans woman, and Blair does a really great job by addressing the problems going on with the Pride Month.
Is it transphobic to not want to date trans people? No, it's not.
And this frustration is not limited to some YouTubers. Common citizens are frustrated too. In the UK, trans activists attacked a group of lesbians when they held a sign that says lesbians do not like penises.
Look at how the trans activists attack a group of lesbians.
And this happened during a pride parade. That pride parade which was meant to be inclusive. And this might make you think, too,
the LGB has nothing to do with the TQ plus community.
And that was a statement. This was something I have never thought about. It just came to my surprise, but the arguments are valid.
The LGB has nothing to do with the TQ plus. The LGB is sexuality, and the TQ plus is identity. Biology matters. There's male and there's female, and the LGB is rooted and depends on biology to even exist.
LGBTQIAA+ stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, asexual, ally, and the plus means it's going on and on and on. According to the critics, the LGB is different than the TQ. If you're a gay or lesbian person, you just like your own gender. If you're bisexual, you like both. That clearly does not change your gender. On the other hand,
and the TQ plus is identity. One has everything to do with who someone is with, and another has everything to do with how that person presents themselves, what their personality is like, if they're suffering gender dysphoria, a whole ball of things.
But in reality, it all revolves around chromosomes. Medically speaking, even after the surgery, you still have your biological chromosomes intact. They do not change. So the TQ becomes all about how you identify as. Because according to the activists, being a female or you say woman is now just an identity. Anybody who wants can identify as a woman. Let me explain.
Now we have a cis woman, which is a biological woman that identifies as a woman, and you have trans woman, which is a biological man that identifies as a woman. And we've effectively turned woman into an identity.
This is the erasure of woman. people can't even use the term biological woman now.
She received a 0 grade for using the term biological woman in a paper about transgender athletes.
And neither they can provide a definition of woman. I mean, Matt Walsh made a whole documentary to find one answer of the question, what
is a woman?
From therapists to doctors to professors, he asked the question to everyone.
What is a woman? Gender and sex. What's the difference? They're fair. I just wanted to know, what is a woman?
And you're not going to find out.
Instead, I get to know a new term called trans-abled.
Ever heard of people in the trans-abled community?
Where physically able-bodied people feels like they should be disabled.
For example, a man who has 2 arms but feels like he should have 1.
Now this is serious mental illness. And the reason behind these kind of behaviors is way bigger than you think. Being a woman is not an identity, it is the reality. This is what critics say. And this is why people find Dylan Mulvaney offensive, because Dylan is clearly just mocking women.
I have already cried 3 times. When someone asked me how I was, I said, I'm fine, when I wasn't fine.
The argument is, if your vagina doesn't make you a woman, then how does crying and telling people, oh, I'm fine when you are not, makes you a woman? On October 2023, Dylan Mulvaney even got awarded with the Woman of the Year, and women are not happy about this.
You are right, and that's never going to change. That's because the only version of womanhood is the biological version.
Dylan Mulvaney has been named as Woman of the Year.
Dylan Mulvaney just won Woman of the Year.
Despite the fact that Dylan Mulvaney is a man.
When your mother received you in the delivery room, he ended it with, it's a boy.
We're not good enough, apparently. It's insulting.
We don't matter.
Same goes for the trans woman who claims to have periods.
This is why some women find offense to the growing amount of trans women saying that they experience a period.
My period I experience every month is very real.
I think the really crappy thing about having a period every month,
even some of them goes as far as to say that trans women are more of a woman than biological women.
But why we're probably most likely a better candidate dating than your average bish.
Also describing benefits of dating a trans woman.
Today we're going to talk about the reasons and the benefits of dating a transgender woman. We are strong individuals. We are more appreciative of the small things.
So biological women are weak, materialistic, stuck-up, bougie
we can't get pregnant, which means we don't have periods either.
Wait, this actually proves the critics' point that trans women can't menstruate or get pregnant because they do not have a uterus. On the other hand, trans men can menstruate and get pregnant because they have a vagina. Saying that trans women are better than biological women is same as saying I'm more of a human being than you. No person on earth is better than anybody. That's like putting yourself on a pedestal above the human beings, and that's narcissistic. According to the TQ+, men can be women and women can be men now. As Amit says,
as a gay man that's gay because he does not like vagina, he likes penis, what am I supposed to do when I'm confronted with someone that's claiming to be a man but has a vagina?
Even lesbians are getting kicked out of the lesbian dating apps because they are labeled as transphobic for not liking penises because trans women have that.
Please only contact if you're born female and proud to be a woman.
It all comes down to protecting the feelings of the TQ+ and nothing else. And just to affirm their identity, even dictionaries are changing their definitions of men and women. This has gone way too far from the day Stonewall riots happened. And I doubt this is what they wanted. One question was still in my mind. How?
So I'll answer that with one word. Kinsey.
Alfred Kinsey, an American sexologist and biologist. According to Kinsey, humans are sexual from birth and
true happiness is found in a life of perverse sexual experimentation, no matter the age.
But
his research was fraudulent.
His data was based on sex offenders in prisons, not on the regular citizen, and the claims that
he also performed horrific sexual experiments on children, some under the age of 1.
Was not wrong. And even though Kinsey claims that the allegations are false, I personally found they are not. It is in his book. The table titles, Example of Multiple Orgasm in Pre-Adolescent Males, as old as 5 months old.
But instead of suffering the consequences for his heinous actions, he was and still is celebrated by academia and Hollywood.
this was the base of what we have today.
How do we get from this to you can choose your own gender?
Yet another name came out.
And his name was John Money.
John Money was a psychologist and professor at Johns Hopkins University.
John used to believe that babies are non-binary from birth and their environment determines whether they are going to be a boy or a girl, and in proving that, two twin brothers caught up in John's trap. The story of Reimer twins. I mean, here we have Bruce Reimer and Brian Reimer, two Canadian twin brothers born on 22nd August 1965. Back when they were just 8 months old, they were having problems urinating due to phimosis.
Phimosis is a abnormality of the opening of the urethra. And so the doctors recommended circumcision for the boys.
And to circumcise that, doctors used a method called cauterization, the process of destroying tissue with electricity or chemicals instead of a blade. But what happened to that? Bruce Reimer's penis was burnt off. Devastated by this incident, their
mother happened to be watching a show on television that featured a psychologist named Dr. John Money.
He seemed charismatic at first, so they contacted him. And being aware of the situation, John invited them to the Johns Hopkins. Being afraid, the parents were convinced by Money that it would be in their son's best interest to raise him as a girl. And this was the greatest opportunity for Money to do his experiment and prove his theory. So, within a few months, John told them to raise Brian as a boy and Bruce as a girl by giving him a new name, Brenda. They gave him girly toys, dresses, and shut their mouths about the incident. Also,
Dr. Money would take the twins without the parents into his office and spend time with the twins.
the tests went on for years and to the level of absurdity. His testicles were removed at the age of 22 months, and at 7 years old, they were forced to perform sexual activities with each other, also taking nude photographs of them.
If the children did not do as asked, the doctor would yell at them.
And you might expect that Dr. Money was facing backlash for this, but that wasn't the case. Dr. Money was actually reporting that his statement was going great.
Well, wasn't true.
The results were a disaster.
They really were. And the sad part is, this theory was
accepted.
The theory of John Money became indoctrinated, and we didn't find out until decades later when Brenda, later changed to David, came to know that Dr. Money was informing people that his experiment on Bruce becoming Brenda and raised as a girl was successful.
You're always going to see people that are going to say, well, the Dave Reimer case could have been successful. I'm living proof. And if you're not going to take my word as gospel, because I have lived through it, who else are you going to listen to? Who else is there? I've lived through it. Is it going to take somebody to wind up killing themselves, shooting themselves in the head for people to listen?
But unfortunately, in July 2002, Brian Reimer was found dead after overdosing on antidepressant. Apart from that, David was also suffering from depression. He was having trouble finding work and with the separation from his wife. And in May 2004, David unalived himself by shooting himself in the head. And you know what it led to? Transitioning the kids.
Phoenix would like you to know that she's a girl and she prefers she and her pronouns.
I'm a 9-year-old transgender American.
Trying to undergo transgender medical procedures.
I've done too much in this world. It's ruined my life.
With fantastic wigs, fabulous shoes, and monumental makeup, there's a new craze for boys.
Chants echoed throughout the Kentucky House chamber.
This week, a whole new slate of anti-trans bills passed in states across the country.
But you should absolutely put your children on hormone blockers.
At what age does the medical transition begin with medication?
So medical affirmation begins when the patient says they're ready for it. So that could be a kiddo who is just starting puberty.
This is what I was being told online. And I gotta admit, it was pretty convincing. I have already said it. Leave the kids alone. But I don't think some people will. According to the studies, the number of children known to be on puberty blockers in the US more than doubled in the last 4 years, from 2,394 in 2017 to 5,063 in 2021, and it is 2024 now. And that might not be a big number, but it is increasing every year.
This is something that I keep hearing that's driving me mad. That hormone blockers, that these puberty blockers are reversible.
Puberty blockers, which are completely reversible.
You can just pause puberty.
No, you can't.
And then pick it up.
No, you can't.
In the future.
No, you can't.
They keep saying that they're harmless. They're reversible. That's not true.
How many studies do they have, long-term studies, on hormone blockers with children? None.
Puberty blockers are 8 times more profitable when they're prescribed to children.
Don't have permanent effects, are wonderful because we can put that pause on puberty.
One of the drugs used is Lupron, right? Which has actually been used to chemically castrate sex offenders.
You know what? I'm not sure that we should continue with this interview.
Lupron is a drug that uses a puberty blocker, and it's just a fact that this drug, number one, to begin with, is a cancer drug. Is Lupron chemical castration?
Yes.
There are always 3 sides of a phenomenon. You can't tell that these so-called puberty blockers are harmless or not. On one hand, people say it is. On other hands, people say it is not. But the third side, the objective truth, is it is totally experimental. But certainly one thing is true, that these blockers are not reversible.
Hormone blockers, reversible, so they say.
We've been told by various organizations, including prominent medical groups, that you can pause puberty. It's not accurate.
Puberty is not like a music player that you can put on pause. But if you think it is only the kids who are being influenced by people,
I'm a biological woman.
You might be wrong. Kelly Nugent, or should I say Scott Nugent, the founder of Tree Voices, was a biological woman who transitioned to male at the age of 42.
I'm a biological woman that medically transitioned to appear like a male.
And you guessed it, it was devastating.
Can you tell me about the procedures that you had?
I've had 7 surgeries. I've had 1 stress heart attack. I've had a helicopter life ride with a pulmonary embolism. I've had 17 rounds of antibiotics. I had 6 inches of hair on the inside of my urethra for 17 months. Nobody would help me, including the doctor that did this to me, because I lost my insurance.
And you know what it led to? PTSD. And I was thinking, what could have gone wrong with the transition of being a man? And what I learned was devastating. The amount that Scott spent to become a trans man billed $1 million. Scott says the transition brought him peace, but the cost is high. It has broken Scott's soul. And you might think there is no problem with it, but the reality is different.
We have studies that said that medical transition helps mental health with kids. They've all been retracted, modified, changed. But the only long-term study tells us 7 to 10 years is when transgender people are the most suicidal.
After?
After surgery. But that's transphobic to say.
This is no joke. And one term that you will hear all the time, transitioning reduces the suicidal tendencies in people. But for how long and at what cost? This study in 2019 proves this point right, but the same authors come back in 2020 admitting that even their data of the surge in significant benefit from medical transition was false. Also, the reason for suicidal tendencies is not specifically gender dysphoria, but the anxiety, depression, guilt, doubt, anything that runs inside the mind during puberty. Even the long-term usage of synthetic hormone therapy shortens your life is proven by studies. The suicidal ideation might be reduced, and that is true, but only at the start. Scott says later in life, the doubts, the suicidal thoughts creep back in. Now you have to deal with yourself and the mistakes you have made 24/7. Grooming, or should I say sexual grooming, is when someone builds a relationship with a child to manipulate, exploit, or abuse them. And you might wonder, how do I get to know this word? Back in March 2023, while I was surfing, I found this article by Al Jazeera, and I'll get back to it. But first, let's talk about this.
Hey kids!
First impressions can be deceiving. Jeffrey Marsh, apparently known as a media personality, and looks like every other person who promotes LGBTQ stuff, saying things like there are not only two genders and nothing is binary, etc. etc. I can go on, But this is not really the problem that I'm addressing. It is rather something else. February 2022, Shamir Nisa, a famous TikTok comedian, made this video on Jeffrey.
Stop telling trans people that we're inspirational.
Stop telling kids to go on your Patreon and chat to you privately without their parents knowing.
And things got heated immediately.
4 or 5 of you have done stuff. Like some of you have found old pictures of me and uploaded it on TikTok without my hijab. Please don't come for my kids.
Today, almost everybody knows the controversy, and there has been allegations on Jeffrey Marsh of being a groomer. And I understand why people want to call Jeffrey a groomer.
Telling kids to chat with him privately on his Patreon without the parents knowing.
Hi kids. Hey kids. I want to talk to the kid. Your parents made mistakes. You can't blame the parents. Of course I can. I'm just concerned about the children. If you do not have a family that loves you, I'm going to be your family. I want to talk to the kids.
That's a sentence no adult should ever say to a stranger's children. Ever.
Now, addressing the elephant in the room. These videos are weird and pretty much self-explanatory, but talking and sexual grooming are completely different things. I do not really know if these videos fall into the category of grooming. Some people say it is, some people say it is not, but a middle-aged adult talking to kids, even through social media, is a little problem.
You will respect us.
I'll need your name, number, pronouns.
That's because I'm non-binary. It's already been cancelled by Netflix. What if you were born with a penis and you know you're a girl inside?
How bad have things gotten? Seriously.
Hi, families! It's time for a pride parade.
Indoctrination. This might just be the right word to say.
Literally the top video. Kids meet a gender non-conforming person.
Popular YouTube show The Comment Section with Brett Cooper did this video on YouTube Kids, pointing out this Twitter X thread.
YouTube Kids is grooming children with LGBTQ plus propaganda. I made an account and what I found was disgusting.
Basically, Aldo made an account on YouTube Kids for the category of 9 to 12 years old, and the very first thing he saw is this. Let me see if that is real. Apparently, when I created an account, it really did not show me anything. But hold on, before you say anything, let me finish. Brett's video was made a long time ago, and YouTube might have fixed this issue. But when I searched the particular term non-binary, this shows up. And every time I watch one, every next video is about LGBTQ. And you know what's interesting? Not just the internet, we're talking about TV shows. Forget that. Books in the schools even puts up sexually stimulating stuff. What? You don't believe me? I believed it neither until I found this book, Lawn Boy by Jonathan Evision. Now, the controversy started back in 2021 when the mother in the Leander Independent School District in Texas spoke out claiming that the book was filled with sexual conduct and pedophilia.
I touched Doug Goebel's dick and he touched mine. What if I told you I touched another guy's dick? What if I told you I sucked it? All I could think about while he was chatting me up was his little salamander between my 4th grade fingers rapidly engorging with blood.
You know, the author later claimed that this book was written for adults in the first place, but the book was found in a high school library, and the claims of pedophilia are not entirely false.
How many times is Dick said the older character later on is fantasizing about that 10-year-old sexual act? That is objectively pedophilic.
And it wasn't just one book. Another similar thing is found in the book Genderqueer, and there have been several books banned from the schools for being sexual. Personally, I think teaching kids about sex, whether it is heterosexual or homosexual, should not be done in the first place. That's pedophilic. A few things were still running in my mind. 1. Why are more people becoming a part of LGBTQ? And 2. What benefits they possibly get from all of this? When the question comes to why someone wants to be transgender, people like to point fingers toward gender dysphoria. I hate to break it to you, but being gender dysphoric and being transgender are different. Here's a study performed on hundreds and thousands of people in 2020 with 5 datasets, and all the datasets have one thing in common: a person who is autistic is more likely to be gender diverse. The reason behind is people who are autistic have lack of social communication, sometimes no friends, and their choices are not so stereotypical. So they seek attention from the internet and become obsessed. Like if a girl is a little masculine, then they get convinced by the internet that they are in the wrong body. And social media, especially TikTok, played its role to make mental illness kinda look cool. People who weren't getting to interact socially got an alternative to seek attention through social media by portraying themselves unique by pretending to have some sort of mental illness.
Obviously redhead Nancy, right? She's feeling a little stimulated today.
Really?
As a result, those who really have any mental illness get unnoticed. And by doing this "look, I am a victim" thing, they manage to get sympathy in these so-called communities. On top of that, if a confused person get influenced by them, they start to believe that they might be trans. But in reality, they could have been just a normal person who has some opposite gender traits or just a homosexual. But simple homosexuality is very different than what I'm going to talk about now.
It appears that the probability of a male human self-reporting as homosexual increases with the number of older brothers that he has.
This was the thing that caught my attention. Ray Blanchard. This was the name I found very often while researching. Ray Blanchard is an American sexologist and researcher, and this man had some very interesting things. His study about the fraternal birth defect order describes the reason for male homosexuality. Let me explain. The probability of a boy growing up to be gay increases for each older brother born to the same mother, the so-called fraternal birth order effect. Exactly what Huberman said. In short, the probability of you being gay increases with the numbers of elder brothers you have. On the other hand, when a fetus is inside a womb, despite being female or male, they both come under the influence of male sex hormones. But when a female fetus is influenced by that hormone more than normal, the change of her being a lesbian increases. Now, the most interesting thing. This might sound a little stereotypical, but you also might have already noticed that normal homosexual men dress like every other guy, sometimes better. But besides them, some claim to have a soul of a woman but a body of a man. And some even dress in a very exaggerated way of a woman. Now, why do they do this? The reason behind is autogynephilia, a type of paraphilia defined as a male's propensity to be sexually aroused by the thought of himself as a female. This theory was also given by Ray Blanchard himself. He talked about men coming to his clinic who like to dress up as a woman, like doing makeup and feeling their genitals as female genitals like a woman. This proves that these people do not have a woman's soul.
There's the autogynephilic types. Those are the guys who get sexual kicks from dressing up in women's clothing and then go do drag queen story hour. Say, well, we're just, pristine and pure. It's like, no, you're not. You're getting a sexual kick from dressing up in women's clothing.
Basically, just a sexual kink.
That'd be insulting to them to say that I knew anything about being a woman. I'm a man, and you're pushing on the walls, and you're trying ideas out. And then suddenly a door will give way, and you go, whoa, next room, let's go.
And those who feel and have a strong sense of being a woman, they transition. Also, this theory answered one of my biggest questions. Heterosexual males are more autogynephilic than homosexuals. This has become so common that either every other autogynephilic person is just convinced to transition and become a woman, or they're just taking advantage of the system. And surprisingly, for the majority, it is happening in the male to female transition. It's slowly becoming a phenomena around the word woman. And when asked to define a woman, all you get is an answer with all the right buzzwords like bigotry, transphobic and misogynist, but little actual truth. But there's a big but. Because you might ask, what is causing this? Well, I couldn't find the exact reason, but I'm really skeptical towards one thing: pornography.
Where we had a lot of data saying 12-year-olds were viewing it, right? Let's say you're 12 years old. The thing about Trans Angels, which is a site, they sell that to straight men. You're 12 years old. You're still figuring out your sexuality. Wouldn't it be helpful to see something that you think is what you want? Putting a trans male or a trans female in a scene, see if you can convert somebody, right? Like maybe somebody who's never looked for anything like that.
Two major things to point out. Firstly, 12 years old watching porn. Secondly, see if you can convert somebody. Now, do I need to explain it? The people you see in these clips are employees of MindGeek, Pornhub's parent company, and I first found out about this from Michael Knowles' video on Twitter X handle back in December 2023. And whether there was a debate if it is really true, I mean, do this type of porn makes you gay or not, but definitely there's an attempt to make this happen.
I'm a straight man. I started watching trans porn because it was just erotic in a different way that I've never seen before.
There it is. It literally rewires your brain.
I needed more stimulation.
Because of pornography?
Yes, because of pornography.
Obviously.
And if the critics are right, and maybe they are, because I don't need to explain why porn is bad for you, then it is a much bigger problem than you think it is. Again, I did my own research, because not just Pornhub, take any pornographic website and just type words like hypnosis, sissy, brainwash, addiction, etc. and you will find some very disturbing things.
I am 14 and sissy feminized porn has fucked me up mentally. Please give me advice on how I can stop.
And the way it works is it rewrites your brain by talking stimulating and weirdly erotic things directly to you, and your brain rewrites the definition of normal for you. A study by X-Hamster showed that those who watch porn regularly are more likely to be bisexual, and apparently this seems progressive to the woke people. But in reality, no one makes profit through all this but big companies.
Everything that the woke agenda touches inevitably fails.
By now, you would have heard about what has happened to Bud Light.
Target becoming the latest brand to report a hit in sales.
BuzzFeed, Vice, Gillette, a whole slew of companies have chained themselves to left-wing political agenda.
Go woke, go broke isn't just a cute line, but can become a brutal economic reality.
After a social media backlash, this one involving Pride Month merchandise.
Go woke, go broke. This was the term I started to hear all the time. Why? Because critics refer to this term as if you start doing woke things, you will go broke. And the Bud Light commercial is one of the biggest examples of this.
Go team! Whatever team you love!
Bud Light faced backlash from people and now they're trying to do a comeback. Disney faced backlash for their Snow White movie by going with hyperfeminism.
I just mean that it's no longer 1937.
Stores in the US like Target, Nike, Starbucks, even games too.
Now of the 29 flag options in this new game, 22 of them are pride flags. There are countless games that have gotten the same woke treatment. The Last of Us TV series that's coming out has introduced some race swap characters.
Now there is a debate I can make for this scenario. Last of Us have been one of the biggest games on PlayStation. Critics have been really skeptic about Ellie being a lesbian girl in the game, but Jacksepticeye really made a good point talking about it in the end credits.
Some people are just mad at the game because there's a trans character in it and there's a gay couple in it, and that's obviously just fucking bullshit to hate on a game for those reasons. The world is going to move on without you. The world is going to progress and the world is going to evolve.
This was a great statement to have, and I agree that the lesbian thing was really on the face sometime, but also it was done perfectly, without any vulgarity or by promoting any agenda. Not everything you see is about agendas, but articles after articles, videos after videos have been made on this topic now. Some saying the sale increased, some say companies went broke. But on a deeper level, there is something worth noticing.
We are going to fly the gay pride flag at all of our embassies and bases and everything else all around the world.
Don't care about the whole LGBTQ.
Well, when I say all around the world, I mean except places where, they don't like gay people.
Companies that are doing it wrong, just throwing a rainbow on something and selling it because it's Pride Month.
Companies do not have any interest in supporting any group of people. Neither do they care about your feelings. You put your ideology in the world. Corporations make products that reflects your belief system and you buy their products to make them money. They only care about business. All they support is the current thing. Again, one of the shadiest parts of everything that follows is it has somehow influenced everybody. Like from common small town people to celebs. We're talking like Caitlyn Jenner, a former Olympic athlete who came out as trans in 2015. Was married to a woman, had children, but after transition, still dating women. Hollywood actress Ellen Page, who came out in 2014 taking the name of Elliot Page. Even popular YouTuber Mr. Beast's friend Chris, who also have been married to a woman, had a child and then transitioned in July 2023.
You are the toughest one to talk to out of anybody, okay?
And I am here today because I am gay.
I want to share with you that I am trans.
And then you start to wonder, am I in the wrong side?
I'm gay.
You're gay. Okay.
They caught me with a guy.
If you think life is complicated, try dealing with a transgender girl.
Why are you cutting there?
I just want to feel like myself. Like, that's it. I don't
Like
care.
old Jazz?
All I want is to be happy and feel like me, and I don't feel like me ever.
And I don't think it will make sense not talking about Jazz Jennings. I remember first seeing Jazz in What Would You Do episode.
Oh, nice to meet you all. So as you may know, I'm transgender myself, so seeing you
And back then I didn't really question the things I've been seeing. Jazz has been the face of the transgender community since 2015, and for those who don't know, Jazz came out at the age of 2, put on puberty blockers at the age of 11, and even first bottom surgery at 17. And all of this has been broadcasted on television by TLC.
It's okay. I know what you're going through. We've been there. No, it still doesn't stop now.
She says, oh, I've been through it. I know it. No, you haven't. Really? You've been through that?
Why are you cutting there? The only problem is there's a limited amount of skin.
If you remember, this is Marcy Bowers, the same doctor who have been interviewed by Matt Walsh, and the same person who said everyone with male to female transition who have been put on puberty blockers can never experience an orgasm.
Every single child or adolescent who is truly blocked at Tanner stage 2 has never experienced orgasm.
And the reason is clear, not enough penis to make a vagina. One might argue that this show was made so that Jazz could find who she really is. But is that true? Because the critics say otherwise.
The doctors were performing experimental surgeries that they had never done on children before.
I just want to feel like myself, and I don't feel like me ever.
How did you have it figured out at 2, baby?
Him living as his quote-unquote true self, and even after all of that, he says, I don't feel like myself.
His body cannot orgasm.
Saying I can't get out of my head, I want to feel like me and never feel like me, wasn't the whole purpose of I Am Jazz?
And even after 4 surgeries, now what?
Do you think she might be asexual?
Unfortunately, Jazz is not the only victim. People who have been exploited are now detransitioning in large numbers. Chloe Cole, a 19-year-old American activist who opposes gender-affirming care for minors. Chloe is another victim of the transitioning process, and the story is terrifying.
Growing up, I was a bit of a tomboy and also on the spectrum, and I didn't know this until I was diagnosed just last year. I lost my support from the transgender community, this community that once treated me as if they were a second family to me. They asked my parents a simple question. At the age of 12, I started experiencing some gender dysphoria. I was fast-tracked onto puberty blockers and then testosterone. I've reported that I regret my surgery. On the path of medical transition at the age of 13, starting with blockers, and then they lied to me and my parents. I got a double mastectomy, and I certainly won't be able to breastfeed. You rather have a dead daughter or a living transgender son? And I stopped transitioning at the age of 16. Please let me be your final warning.
If that is true, then what do you call her? A transphobic? For a decision that changed her life completely? If the communities are really inclusive and about acceptance of who someone really is, then why do you think people are convinced to transition? And why do you think they are detransitioning?
Because I'm a tomboy and I do all this guy stuff, so naturally I should just be a guy, right? No.
I don't think it was necessarily because I transitioned. I think I was just really confused.
Every day I am so grateful that my parents didn't have enough money for me to medically transition at 12 or 13, or that I didn't run away from home and decide to have a double mastectomy.
Sexual dysfunction at the age of 18.
After speaking with him for one time only, he approved me for surgery.
How was I supposed to know?
Another thing comes with this is the use of pronouns, or should I say weaponizing them.
I use she, her pronouns. I'm not certain.
And I ladies. Damn, and
show you how to use Barbie's pronouns. I got kicked out of a bar. Starburst pronouns and sentences. I use pumpkin spice pronouns and use funny's pronouns and
What pronouns should I use?
You should use they them pronouns. So you saying that you
And what
don't
if I don't?
believe me,
What if I don't?
That is an act of violence to intentionally misgender someone.
Misgendering someone is not an act of violence.
And now you're not even allowed to use the greeting term ladies and gentlemen because some people don't identify with that. And by that logic, we should be cancelling Swami Vivekananda, right? Because he greeted America by saying,
Sisters and brothers of America.
You're laughing. You should actually, because these things get more and more ridiculous as we speak. Even common people have chosen to protest against it, and not just by pointing fingers, but also with satire.
I'm a woman.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm a woman. I'm a trans woman.
I want to weaponize my pronouns. What are pronouns?
There's actually gender-neutral and non-binary parent titles that exist.
When I grow up, I want to work for a woke company.
Neither. They, them.
So does non-binary have a hole or a pole?
Pom-pom, Zaza.
What in the hell did you just call me?
I want to be offended.
Okay, is it okay if I touch you?
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Do you mind if I touch you?
I'm also gonna cut my fucking hair.
And if this doesn't reflect the society we're living in, then what does? I once referred memes as a cultural phenomena, and this clearly manifests the meaning.
Okay, why can't I identify as a black lesbian? If I can identify as anything without any need to prove I'm actually what that is, why can't I on International Women's Day say I'm Piers Morgan, I'm a black lesbian?
People who go crazy with their thought process of identifying as anything they want to be are the same lunatics as the people who are creating flags for straight people.
Straight Pride Parade has officially started. Classic straight pride flag.
Straight pride flag. Holy shit.
Because it's never been done before and everyone's gonna be pissed off even though it's obviously a joke.
Because one extreme is not the solution for another extreme. And I still don't know if there is a wrong side in this circus. Because if the people who are trying to indoctrinate gender obsession into children are wrong, then some things said by critics are wrong too. If transphobia exists, then the people who take advantage of the system by using transgenderism exist too. But also to understand that homosexuality or transgenderism is biologically natural, but is not natural for reproduction. But if the critics are right, then there will be an entire generation that is going to be guinea pigs for this so-called revolution.
We are using babies as guinea pigs.
If the critics are right, then there will be zero tolerance for anyone's opinion that goes against any politically correct thought in the near future. Because everybody will be fearful to say anything or they will be getting cancelled. Do I think transgender people exist? Yes, I do. Do I think homosexuality exists? Yes. And it is not a crime and neither a sin. Do I think children should have bottom surgery and hormone blockers? Hell no. Let them grow, they will figure it out on their own. And at the same time, you cannot play the victim card just because you think you are oppressed. For me, I think mental health plays a big role in all of this. I mean, people do face gender dysphoria and discrimination, but there are also people who indulge too much into the gender thing. When their gender becomes their identity and all they have to talk about is how they have been oppressed and transitioned. And I've noticed this too much gender obsession mostly in the Western countries. Forget about the West, I'm not even from there. But here in India, there are cases where transgender people face tremendous amount of discrimination. Some are not even allowed to work for how they look, and on the other hand, I see people attending pride parades waving their flags. But I do not see the link between these two faces of the coin. Surely transgender people are now recognized as the third gender here in India. But the question is, where is the support when you need it? Because homosexual marriages are still illegal in India. Recently, I read an article about the Dartmouth scar experiment, performed by Dr. Robert Click and a team of psychologists. This experiment demonstrates the impact of the victim mentality very clearly. In the experiment, participants were informed that they would be interviewed while showcasing a scar on their faces, which was applied by a makeup artist. However, unbeknownst to the participants, the makeup artist removed the scar before the interview, making it appear as though they never had one. Results? Participants who believed they had a scar displayed feelings of powerlessness, self-pity, and increased tendency to blame others for their failures. On the other hand, participants who did not took responsibility for their actions and sought solutions to challenges, and I always ask myself the same question. Do I take responsibility for my actions? Do I seek solutions for my problems, or do I just blame others? Unfortunately, more and more people are letting the victim mentality take over their mind, and I guess it is totally because we have made a system that treats every oppressed community specially rather than equally. I think that might be the reason why the percentage of LGBTQ people has nearly doubled in the last decade. And also to ask if it is a generation problem or not, because 20% of Gen Z are now identifying themselves as a part of LGBT community. That's 1 in every 5 people. It's been 55 years since the Stonewall riots. 5.5 decades to find equality, opportunities, and meaning behind this nonsense. More or less, the first two have been found, but a literal use case scenario for this? I do not know, but I know one thing. This is not over yet.